Hello, it's Mrs. Terpstra again. So we have just finished our Islam notes, and we are going to go on to the culture of the Middle East. Now, for some of you, we started these notes, maybe even got close to finishing them, and some of you, we didn't even start them. So I'm going to start from the beginning, but remember, teacher, sub-teacher, that you can fast forward this to wherever you need in the lesson for this particular class, and you can just go from there. Okay, all right, so let's begin. Let's talk about culture in the Middle East. All right, the first thing we want to look at are the different types of dress. And we're going to start with ladies. And what I would recommend is, just like I'm going to do, I would write the different terms on each picture. So as you study these for your test, you'll know which one is which, okay? All right, first of all, this head to toe covering that you see in blue here, with even the eyes covered, is called the burqa. The burqa. The niqab is this headdress here that covers everything but the eyes. And the eyes are a very sexy thing in the Middle Eastern culture. In fact, many gentlemen pick their mate based on the beauty of their mate's eyes. So they definitely pay attention to your eyes if you have beautiful eyes. Okay? The next scarf that you see here is called the hijab. It's like ZH, hijab. And you'll notice that that covers the hair and it covers the neck. The neck is considered a very seductive part of the body in the Middle Eastern culture, so they don't believe that you should show that to just anyone. And then the abaya is this robe-like thing that you see over here. Now, if you look at the word hijab, that word means to cover. And Muslims wear the hijab to preserve their modesty as God has asked them to do, so that we're not cocky or showing off or anything. We want to be modest and cover the assets that God has given us. And you may even know some people, even in this school, that have chosen to do that. I had a student who came to America, and when she got to be in high school, her parents gave her the choice. She could either do the American version or she could do the Middle Eastern version, and she chose to do it this way. And the reason that's kind of special is because the only person that gets to see that beautiful neck or the hair of that particular lady is her husband. So that is something that's very intimate that they share between each other. I know, it's time to say, all right, okay. All right, let's take a look at the guy's dress. I bet you can tell which one is the thobe. Sounds like robe. Yes, gentlemen, you are correct. This is the thobe right here. The gentlemen wear robes as well. The headscarf that you see here is called the gutra. And this little circular thing that you see right here, this is called the agal. And they wear that not only because it looks nice, but it also, remember, especially in the desert, it's very windy. And so it helps hold that scarf down on your head. It's actually kind of heavy. I actually should mention, I got these notes from my student teacher because she actually served in the military over in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I said, since you have this experience, we'd like to bring some of your culture back to my classroom. So that's where we got all this. All right, let's talk about food a little bit. They believe in what's called halal, and that is any object or action that is permissible by Islamic law. So for example, they do not believe in eating pork because they believe that is a sacred animal. They don't believe in drinking alcohol. And if they do eat any meat, it must be slaughtered by a particular person, and that is the dabiha. I have to pronounce that, dabiha. And he does it in a particular fashion. First, he has a very sharp, deep cut to the throat, and they do it that way so that the animal does not suffer, and it's a very quick death. After they do that, then the dabiha actually does a prayer as thanks to God, and thank you for the animal for giving us this food. And then they hang the animal to release all of the blood. So there's a specific ritual to that. Now here's some pictures of some really delicious food that you might find over there. Can you guess which one is the kebabs? Yep, we even have kebabs in our culture, right? That is actually a Middle Eastern food. So these are kebabs, and you'll see those over there quite often. This big old pile of meat that you see hanging here is called shawarma. I think about some of the sandwich shops that shave their own meat, and that's basically what they do. They shave the meat off of there and give it to you, okay? Then we have what we call kibbeh and hummus. Have any of you had hummus in here? Do you know what goes into hummus? I guess there are numerous things. I've only had one kind, it was like the old style, and that is that it has chickpeas in it, ground up. So this is your hummus. And then these little pita breads are called kibbeh. And you dip that into your hummus. And our last one is called kubs. And they're basically like, kind of like a Hot Pocket. They're meat surrounded by a little breaded outside. So those are some things that you can try. If you look at the art in the Midwest, you'll notice that they have beautiful geometric designs and floral designs on their rugs that cover the floor. And they'll also have beautiful tiled mosaics on the walls, different colors. Oh, it's gorgeous. But you'll notice on all of these designs, there are no people. And if you remember what we said about Muhammad, do you remember why we don't see his picture very often? Exactly, because it's against Islamic belief to actually have portraits of people. So you won't see that very often in this case because they don't consider that a very modest thing to do. All right, we're kind of getting into our assignment that will actually be due on Thursday, the same day as your test, since we didn't get to this completely until today. You'll notice that they use calligraphy in the Middle Eastern culture. It's very popular, and they take great pride in doing a beautiful job in the way that they write their signature, for example. So, like, for example, they might use a quote like this, and they'll write it in a beautiful form so that you could give that to someone. Or they might do what's called a zoomorph, where they actually take words, letters from a word, and they make it into an animal. Thus the name zoo means an animal. And you'll notice here is just an example of some of the calligraphy that they do on this building here. We'll get back to that a little bit later. Now let's take a look at names in the Middle Eastern culture. Have you ever noticed that their names seem like they go on forever? For example, Muhammad ibn Said ibn Abd al-Aziz al-Filistini. That is a mouthful. So let's figure out why they have such a long name, and then you can actually write your own name, all right? So there are some different terms that we use for the types of things we use in this name. So first of all, we have what's called the ism, and you need these for your test, all right? That is your personal name. So like my personal name is Diann. So go ahead and write your first name next to your ism. That's your ism. Now in Arabic, most of the time, the name that they give their child has a meaning, and it's usually a hoped for characteristic for your child. So maybe they would look at you over here, and they would say, oh, I want her to have kindness in her heart. So they would pick a word like that. Or maybe they would want you to be brave over here, Austin. So they would name a word that means brave, okay? All right, the next part of the name is the nasab. And the nasab denotes the family that you belong to. They typically don't use this as much today, but if you use the formal name, then they do. Okay, so the first thing you have to decide, are you a boy or a girl? If you are a boy, you're going to use an ibn. Okay, so you are the son of whatever your dad's name is right here. Now I'm a girl, so I would be bint, the daughter of, and my dad's name is Lloyd. So far, my name is Diann bint Lloyd. Got it? The third part is called the nisbah, which is the surname. And that usually indicates where you're from, your ancestors' tribe, country, city, background. Okay? So I could use numerous things. I could use the South Dakotan. I could use the Brandonite. Or I've even seen people that list a characteristic, the brave. So put something there that describes where you're from or something that you want to use to describe you. That would be your NISBA. So my full name would be Diann Bint Lloyd the Brave. Okay? Now this one actually has, the example I gave has a little bit more to it. So let's break this one down. All right, so let's take a look. Now the ism, the proper name is Muhammad. And you may hear that name a lot in the Middle Eastern culture because that name means praise, like as in praise God. So there's Muhammad. His nasab is Saeed, that's his father's name. So notice Ibn Saeed, that's his father's name. And the word Saeed, by the way, means happy. But you notice it doesn't stop there. He also wants to tell you what his family background is. So he uses another nasab, which is his grandfather's name. So he's going to use Ibn again, and his grandfather's name is Abd al-Aziz. And then you know it, the nisbah is where he's from. And he is from, let me use a different color, al-Palestini means the Palestinian. So there you go. Muhammad ibn Saeed ibn Ad al-Aziz al-Palestini. There you have it. Okay. Now another thing that I want to talk about is called the tugra. And this is basically a stylized calligraphic signature that the old sultans use. So the best way to describe it is, you know how you have a stamp that has your signature that maybe Dr. Talcott uses on all his forms? Okay, that's what basically this is, only they do it in their beautiful calligraphy. So this is Mahmud Han bin's particular signature that you see right here in this beautiful color. Now you'll notice that he has actually incorporated his letters to his name within his actual signature. So the things that are in red are here. That's meaning Mahmud. And the Han is in blue. The Bin is in green. The Abu Hamid is in gold. Muzaffar is in light blue. And Daima is in purple. So he's incorporated all those letters within the signature. This is probably, oh, and we need to talk about what all those things mean. So let me erase my marks so you can actually see what I'm doing over here. Because each of these things in this signature, you have certain requirements, and then you can add letters or make them into letters. But you have to have these things if you do a tugra for your project. The first thing you'll see are the two loops on the left side. 1, 2, right? Those are called the bazi actually, bazi. And they actually represent different things. The bazi represent the two seas, the two major seas, which are the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. That's the bazi. The three vertical lines that you see up here, 1, 2, 3, see those? Okay, those are called the tug. And the tug represent flagstaffs of freedom. The three swerve lines that you see right in here, see those? Okay, those are called zulfa. And those represent the direction of the wind. And in their country, it mostly goes from east to west. So think of the waves of the wind, and then you'll think of those S's or swerving lines. Then you'll see there's a bunch of stacked writing down in here. That's called the seer. And the seer is actually the Sultan's name. And the last one are the two extensions that you see over here to the right. And those are called Hanser. And they represent swords of might of the Ottoman Empire, when the Ottoman was very powerful. And they kind of look like swords. They stick out like a blade, don't they? So that would be easy to remember for your test. So for example, this is a very famous signature in the Middle Eastern culture. Suleiman was like the enlightened ruler of the Middle East. He really modernized their place. So this is actually his signature. So you'll notice that we have the two C's, right? We've got the three flagstaffs. We've got the wind. We've got the two flagstaffs, or the two swords. And then notice he has added his letters in there for his seer, or his name. Okay? All right. So now it is your turn. You can choose to either do a tugra, which is calligraphy for your name, or you can do calligraphy like this, either in a zoomorph with an animal or something that represents you. Okay? So at this point in time, student or substitute teacher, if you could hand out the handout that says Arabic art, what's in a name, and I'll pause the notes for just a second while you do that, and then you can start it up again. Okay, if you'll read your rubric with me, you'll notice under the calligraphy option, and I have some examples up here on the board for you to look at, you must have at least one of your names in this particular shape. For example, you could use Courtney, or you could use the full name Courtney Van Santen, okay? It must be zoomorphic, representing an animal, like you see down here. Morgan chose to do a dolphin, okay? Or you could have something representing a figure that represents you. So for example, here, Tate Watson chose a phoenix because it means rebirth and strength, and she really liked that. In her case, she used her full name, Tate Mazarin Watson, in that beautiful design. Got first place, as you can see. Emily here chose a flower because her name, Emily, means flowers. And you can see she actually used the vase for her name. And then Morgan means by the sea. So she chose to actually do a dolphin. And if you look, her letters are actually in there. It's pretty neat. Okay. Now what I'd like you to do is you're going to hand around some of my examples anyway. And I actually did this one here that's up in front, and you can hand it around, teacher. I actually did a wolf. And I chose a wolf because I feel like I have the call of the wolf every once in a while. I have to go tour somewhere crazy in the world, and I have a little wild in me. A little crazy, you know that. So if you'll take a look at the form of the wolf, and if you point it up so the nose is towards the ceiling, you will see my name, Diann, Diann. And then I also use the word teacher because obviously that means a lot to me, and that describes who I am. And so teacher starts just to the left of the nose, and then the E-A-C-H-E-R goes on down the front of his head. So you can hand that around. So you could choose to do something like that. Or you can choose to do a tugra. Up on the board, you'll see Courtney did hers. And then I also have one in yellow here. And if you'll notice, I have incorporated the letters right into the design. So it's not like you just stack all your letters at the bottom of the design. That's not the meaning. You'll notice like my D is the first big C, the curve of the C, and then the first flagstaff. The A is in orange, and you'll see that I use my first and last name. And then you'll notice that I also gave a key so that you know where to look for each of the letters. So the D is in red, The I is in green, the A is in orange, and so on. And so you would make sure to do that, okay? So if you look at the TUGRA option on your rubric, it says you must have at least one name or both. You must include all of the requirements. You must have the 2 C's, the flagstaffs, the wind, the swords, all that stuff. And then you add your letters within that. And then you must include a colorized breakout showing how that all works, and it must be neat and all that fun stuff. You'll notice that it's worth 35 points, 10 points for creativity, 10 points for neatness, and 15 for your requirements. Oh, don't forget you can hand these examples around for students to look at. And if you need other examples, like for example, I am not a great artist, but I looked up a picture of a wolf, a drawing, and I just outlined the outside, and then I found ways to figure my letters on the inside. Now, I would highly recommend that you use pencil first. Trust me, or you will end up starting over more than once. I did it the wrong way first. I tried to do it in color, and it was not pretty. So for the remainder of class, if you have any class time left today, you can start working on your design. Start with a pencil and paper, and then once you know what you're doing, you can grab your colored paper on the art cart and use whatever you need, markers, etc., and work on that, and it will be due on Thursday. Have fun. I can't wait to see what you have in common. Oh, and please don't forget that you need to be studying your Quizlet for this particular test over the Middle East. Like I said, it's all vocab words, so you're going to need to kind of practice to familiarize yourself, all right? We'll see you tomorrow.